Hello and welcome to this episode of Unbound. I'm Nicola Humber, author of Unbound and founder of the Unbound Press. And today I am delighted and excited to be joined by Tanya Dantus. Welcome, Tanya.
Hi, thank you.
Tanya is a psychotherapist and she's a coach. She helps women with a real focus on women's empowerment. And I've known Tanya for a number of years now. We connected online. We've had some great conversations in the past and, through our work together. So I really wanted to get Tanya on and see what comes out of this conversation. These Unbound conversations are very free-flowing. We see what wants to come through at that particular time. So I'm excited to see what comes up today, Tanya.
Yeah. So they're congruent. They're unbound themselves.
Completely. They couldn't be any other way. So let's dive in. And actually, I do generally start these conversations by asking the same question, which is, obviously the theme here is unbound, but I'm curious to know if there's a particular time in your life or a situation in your life that stands out where you have felt particularly bound and restricted and how you moved beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, actually how I feel into that question is that I think I was most bound when I was younger and I didn't really realize it. Mm-hmm. And it's been the process of unbinding myself from a lot of things and constantly continuing to do so. But even now thinking of like the metaphor of, when little kids are kind of contained, it's like what I think a lot of our parents and did it innocently, thinking, oh, if I surround her with these beliefs or this way of doing things or tell her to do it like this, then it's going to help her. But I think it was ultimately very restricting. Yeah,
absolutely. And, I'm sure a lot of the women watching this will identify with that, and I'm speaking particularly about women because obviously that's my audience and the same for you as well. But I think we receive so many messages as little girls about how we should be and what's acceptable and what's not. And we can carry that with us for a long time. And I'm wondering how that impacted on you kind of in your early life, Tanya.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of incongruencies for me because I had, I was a straight A student. I got into an Ivy League college, kind of surface, everything seemed like it should be going well, but I had really, really strong experiences that were showing me, and I hoped that it would be showing everyone else, my parents, that things were not so well. Like, I had alcohol poisoning when I was like 16 or something. One year after the other, there was like these things that to me, it was, you could call it acting out. It was unconscious, but it was like me trying to get some support on a deeper level. And, then it was off to college and then it was boys and all kinds of different stuff. And it took me really seeing like, I want things to be different and no one seems to be doing anything or helping me or getting it. So I was living in Mexico at the time and I actually got the fortune of working with sort of a traditional healer / therapist. And she did a lot of energy work and I worked with her for a couple of years and she used so many different tools and techniques and started to help me kind of start to come out of like, start to come into awareness about myself and like who I really am and what I really am and beyond like all the things I've been taught.
Mm. And what was that like for you to kind of have that experience and to, it's like remembering who you truly are or aspects of who you truly are?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's different aspects of the experience. I mean, obviously on the one sense, it was like coming home, like, oh, like, thank God, like this resonates deeper than anything else I've ever been taught, everything, you know, for years, everything I've been told. But then I will be honest, and what I often tell a lot of the women I work with is it's a little bit like Plato's cave, you know, like you've been in the dark for years and you're coming out, and sometimes the light can feel blinding and you're like, what is this? I don't really understand. Like it resonates, but I don't really understand it. And it feels scary. And am I doing it right? And what's the right path? And it took a long time. And like, I didn't even realize that I started to understand things. And now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know what embodiment or empowerment really was all about, or so many things, you know, what is really the point of yoga, or what is really, all of these things. And so it was a big mix. It was exciting. It was scary. It was, felt like home. And then there were, of course, challenges of feeling the feelings, and yeah. And of seeing that it wasn't like that, it wasn't perfect, because I think that's one of the binding things that happened when I was younger, that perfectionism, that sense of like, when you try something, you have to get it right. And when I wouldn't get it right, and it would, you know, I would quote unquote fail, or, you know, it wasn't perfect. It was hard. I could be hard on myself. And I also had to learn it's progress, not perfection. Right. So.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, the very nature of this work, this path of kind of coming home to ourselves is kind of, it's messy. And you know that I talk about the idea of the good girl, the inner good girl. And I think, you know, I'm definitely a recovering good girl. You know, she still shows up now, and she can show up very much on this path. It's like, oh, you know, I need to get it right. I need to be further ahead, or, you know, I should, there's this way of doing it that I need to find. And it just doesn't work like that, does it?
Right. And she's very black and white, like it's this or that, when a lot of truth is very paradoxical in nature. Like both this and that.
Exactly. And the inner good girl definitely can't cope with that. She's like, it's got to be one or the other.
Textbook. I need a textbook.
Absolutely. So tell us kind of more about your kind of journey from that point, Tanya, when you had like this kind of 2 years of working with this modality and having these kind of breakthroughs, and what happened after that? What did you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a period of time in which there was a lot of different possibilities came up for me, like different options. Like I started working at it's called, it always gets people's attention, a multi-sensorial experimentation center, which was a trip. It was really an amazing place in which we would guide people through a multi-sensorial experience. So like blindfolding the eyes, or actually it was these goggles which allowed you to see light but no form. Because we have there's this sense that we use the eye visual way too much. We rely on the visual, and we want to label things. That's like another thing we're taught. And so that whole principle behind the center was to move from smell and taste and touch, and to you know, release a little bit of that pressure on the visual. And so I became a guide there, and I learned so much, and it was so exciting. And then they would, you know, part of the trainings, we would start to do sweat lodges. And I just, all of a sudden I was immersed in a whole new world that I had never heard about any of this stuff. And I had not experimented it, and ceremonies and all these different things. We had exercises, like we had to cross the street, like a couple of streets in Mexico City, which is a huge city, like cross a few streets blindfolded. The whole group would be blindfolded, and we had to like make our way back to the place.
Oh my goodness.
Blindfolded. And they were just amazing experiences that opened me up in many ways. And then I learned about the Mayan calendar, and that was kind of a springboard for me. it was before 2012 and it was a huge hype, and I got really, really excited and found out a lot about it. And I traveled with a group of people to Palenque in Chiapas, and it's got the biggest monumental sarcophagus in the entire American continent. Yet they don't teach you about it in school, of course, you know.
Mm.
And I was there, and there was a huge gathering of people from all over the world, and it just opened my eyes to, okay, there are people who are interested in ancestral wisdom and the Mayan wisdom, and there's so much to learn from everything from archetypes to different ways of looking at time. And it was like a portal opened up to a whole new world. And so that's where I followed it. So it was very scary. I have to say that took a lot of sitting with myself and looking deeply, like, what am I committed to here? Do I want to stay with my fear, or do I want to move into follow this exciting trail that's opened up?
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. I love that, the sound of the like multi-sensory sense. The work you did there, that's incredible. So how do you kind of blend all of this together now, Tanya? And I know that might be difficult to kind of put into words, because a lot of women that I connect with have had all of these different experiences and have been on this path, which can be quite kind of windy, and you know, they've done one thing and then moved towards something else. And one of the challenges can be, well, how do I bring that all together in a kind of coherent way? So how do you do that? How are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, this was, let's say, at least over 15 years ago. So yeah. I've had time. I mean, one thing, but yeah, I mean, I decided that I would study counseling psychology so that I would have like a career that was sturdy and solid in the world in a grounded way, like that I would be able to, it would serve as an umbrella for all of these random sort of things that, you know, happened. And I also made a commitment. I think this has been the biggest thing that's helped me, is that at some point I stopped. Like at some point I was like, I've done so many trainings, so many certifications, Reiki, theta healing, like all these things that I was like, okay, I will not, after I finished my master's, I was like, I won't do anything else until I'm working and really making a living doing what I love to do. Mm-hmm. As a symbol of the fact that I need to value what I already know and stop trying to feed into that fear of like, I don't know enough or I'm not enough already. And I see that happens a lot, you know, and so to just put myself out there and start to do the work and let that inform me if I really do need to study, you know, something else or, so I think just getting into the practice and like doing, you know, therapy, has been great. I do coaching now too, as well. And I run a couple of groups, and in the groups, as I go on in my career, I find ways to weave in things. Like I find ways to weave in dance or yoga or movement. But it's really like in the walking, in the moving through. Yeah.
I love that you say that, because I think so many women get hung up on the idea they've got, you know, there's this perpetual need to keep learning new techniques and new modalities, like, you know, because we receive all of these messages, like particularly when we're younger, how we're not enough in some way. So there's always this kind of need to know more and be able to do more. And I love what you say there about, you know, allowing the work to guide you. And if you need to learn something else or to dive into something else, you can, if that comes through in the work that you're doing with your clients. But pretty often, most of the time, we know enough, don't we? And it's about trusting yourself and trusting that the way you work and what you bring to your work is enough.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the programs I do nowadays aren't really about teaching me new.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
A container for me to deepen into the work I already do and draw it out from my own self more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm thinking about that in relation, obviously, I work with a lot of women around their writing. It's something that we're working on at the moment. And it's very much the same there, rather than thinking, oh, I need to have it all figured out before I start writing. It's allowing like the writing process to kind of take you wherever you need to go with it. Very similar.
Yeah, like in the Unbound Writing Mastermind, which I'm in with you. I mean, I think that, that's one of the points of connection we have, is that I find that in the focus with women, a lot of these issues intersect, the sort of the self-worth, self-value, self-confidence, the unbound, before I was bound and now I'm not unbound, and now I'm unbound, and then sort of the I'm not good enough or I'm not ready, and and to just start doing the work. And of course it's going to be a process of trusting oneself, and it's going to be messy, as you said earlier, but to start doing it and to learn from that process, because that's just so valuable and juicy, and it gives you so much information. And there's kind of no way out but through, as people say, to just go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that phrase. I don't know who said it originally.
No, right. No, I've heard it from other people. I don't know if someone, like, it's just like a phrase that people say, because I don't know who said it originally. But.
No, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's so true. Scary, but true. And I know a really important aspect of your work, Tanya, is kind of helping women to have this sense of embodiment and doing a lot of work with the body, like coming home to our bodies. And can you talk a little bit more about your experience of that? What I know from my own personal experience and kind of connecting with other women is that very often, again, this is very common, that we've been switched off from our bodies and learnt to mistrust our bodies in a way. And what has that process been like for you, of kind of returning to the wisdom and the knowing of your body?
Yeah, that fascination with the sky gods.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we talk about this too.
Yeah. And coming back to the earth body, it's like, I think it's definitely a part of the process for women, especially for everyone, but for women, especially in the sense of, like, having lived a very masculine spirituality of like, there's some kind of, even if you don't rationally think that, or you consciously think, oh, I'm not religious, like, there's still this cultural ingrainment of the idea of like some god in the sky, a bearded white man in the sky that's like watching you, and that's God, and like all he wants is like for you to behave, and like this kind of sense, like, no matter what religion. I'm not Christian, but but it's just there, it's just there, from the images and the culture. And I think it's a process. It's all together, it's all together. And there were a lot of things about not feeling good enough in my body, like the whole sense of like, oh, it must, guys must not like me because I'm not skinny enough, or things like this. And I think things really shifted when I did get skinny, and I saw that it made no difference. And it was like I still felt inside all of the same things. And then it started to switch, like, maybe that's not the point of all of this. Like, I like to move because I like to move. I like to, work out or run or walk or dance or even just roll around with my little boy or anything like that's body, just because it's the experience of being human and alive in this body. And just like I like to enjoy food, or I like to enjoy a bath and putting on oils and smells, and the experience of being in my body is the most spiritual experience that I can have for me, and to connect with the tree and the bird and all of these things. So I think that a lot of women that I work with have a hard time because they're trying to avoid certain feelings. They don't want to feel what they really feel. And I think that's where it's helpful to have company who's like holding your hand, is like, you can do it. You can feel this. You can face that dragon, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, as you were speaking about there, and I know we've spoken about this, but as you say, a lot of spirituality is and has been very kind of head-based, and kind of takes us into the head, or takes us kind of up rather than kind of down and into our bodies, and that connection with the earth. And I think that's why a lot of women, we were talking about this just yesterday, can struggle with things that's just like meditation, and the way that that's taught and we're told to do it. It's like, very kind of rigid and quite stark, and as women that just doesn't feel good for us, and then we feel like there's something wrong with us because we can't sit and just
I lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for 3 months, and as a resident, and I had to get out of there because it's like they wouldn't let me wear my colored socks, even like you can't wear even colored socks, and it was a good experience in the end, because I sat a lot and meditated a lot, and in the end it was like, get out of here and live life, and just like, you don't need to sit here and do it. You can go out and observe. And yes, I think that is there's a book which I have not read, but I just love the title, that's called Meditation Secrets for Women. Ooh. And a woman, Jess Grippo, who's like into dance and coaching through creativity, she had mentioned it to me, and I love the sense of someone addressing the fact that meditation doesn't always look the same for any individual, maybe specifically women. I don't know. I haven't been a man this life, but I definitely think that for women, it could be like, you could be cooking and preparing vegetables, or putting away clothes, or taking a walk, and it's meditative. It doesn't have to always be still. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, definitely. Like for me, I mean, but sometimes I can, and there's definitely a cyclical element to this. Like at points in my cycle and the moon cycle, I'm able to sit and kind of do more traditional meditation. But usually for me, it's like going out for a walk, or there's some kind of movement involved. Certainly connecting with nature for me is one of the most powerful ways to meditate. So yeah. So tell us a bit more about kind of any practices, Tanya, if someone is listening to this and maybe they've been struggling with being too kind of head-based and feeling that there's something wrong with them because they really struggle with that. What are some ways that we can kind of come back into our bodies and find a more feminine way of having a spiritual practice?
Yeah, well, we were talking about this exactly in the group yesterday. And so one of the things that I think is really important is to tune into our bodies. And, some people, I'm certainly not the first to mention this, but like body scans or checking in with our body. I don't specifically do that so much anymore, but I will tune in if there's a specific magic going on in my body. I don't like to label it like pain or tension, or because it's like already setting you up for something. So like I like to call it magic. Like, is there some kind of magic going on in my body? Like a place that's calling my attention, which often my body speaks to me in that way. So like I'll tune in, whether it's my hips or my shoulders or my neck or belly or heart. And I'll just see what the energy looks like, and I'll come in like a scientist and ally my mind to that heart, and not come in like judging or wanting to get rid of, but like wanting to include that part and hear it out. And so I'll really first get a sense of the size, the color, the texture, the temperature, all of that energy, and just really get to know it a little bit, observe it better. And then I'll ask it what its message is, what it's doing there. Maybe there's a certain time in my life that it started to come in, and like I'm already familiar with that energy. Maybe it's new, and just I'll hear it out and see what it wants, and if there's anything I can do, and maybe it wants to strengthen a certain part of me. Yeah.
I love that. And with that kind of approach, and you can do it, you can do that relatively quickly, once you kind of get used to just connecting with your body and at any particular part where there's something. I love the way you describe it as magic. That's just perfect. Where there's some magic going on, where your body is trying to get your attention, just kind of tuning in and noticing the qualities of it and asking, what do you want me to know? That can be a really kind of simple and relatively quick process that you can do. And in my experience, you always gain, the answer can be quite simple, actually. Very often it is. But yeah, it's always so much more beneficial than trying to figure it out from up here.
Yeah. And I think what happens a lot, I don't know if you can relate, but is that sometimes we have like certain persistent magic that comes up. Like we have our spot, that hip or that place between the shoulders, whatever, or a certain time we have it coming up consistently. And I think a lot of us can get like, oh God, not again. Like, how do I, and I have to, but it's kind of like the essence of practice. Like, that's why they call it a practice of like reparenting as well, and showing up for that needy, metaphorically, that needy child, and really showing up in a new way and being able to just let it be seen and heard. And like, maybe there's not much else you're going to do, like tangibly, but like just letting it know, like, I see you and I hear you and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue hearing and seeing you. Yeah. And yeah, holding space for you. So
yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And thinking of parts of my body where there's been kind of persistent magic, and again, just using that word is so helpful and so freeing. And in the past, like, I can tend to feel magic in my shoulders, and it's always been a thing. Oh, what can I do? Maybe I need to get a massage, and like trying different techniques to fix my kind of magic shoulders. And it's like, I think it was a couple of years ago, I just thought, I think I'd been to see an osteopath, and he was like, oh, you really need to let go, and just talking about my shoulders. And I was just like, oh, actually, my shoulders are okay. I love my shoulders. They've been like this for most of my life, and it's all good. I just decided to send love and approval to them exactly the way they are, rather than kind of looking outside and trying to fix them. And that in itself just kind of help them to kind of relax. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's not about kind of looking for solutions all the time or trying to fix different parts of ourselves.
Yeah, that's a huge also shift from the masculine into a feminine. The quality of just receptivity, like hearing, I hear you.
Yeah,
I need to solve it, or so tempting again, because we've been so ingrained with that, but just to know that, I think there's a lot there for
oh my goodness, that's just kind of made me think, and this is probably a whole other conversation, but just thinking in relationship, like to other people, when we've got something going on for us, often, usually all we need is someone to hear us, not to jump in and try and offer a solution. That can be like the the worst thing when someone's trying to fix us or jump in with a solution. So it's the same with our bodies, isn't it?
Yeah, and like ultimately disempowering, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like saying, oh, I need to, yeah, I definitely look at this. I wrote this down in my coaching class the other day, because there is that sense of like, I need to save you, right? Like I need to rescue, rescue you is the right word. Like as if I need to rescue. And as a practitioner, like I have to be mindful of like, I'm not rescuing anyone. And sometimes what someone needs is really, what we need is to sit in it for a moment.
Yeah.
The full impact of like, I don't like this place. Like, so that then it motivates us to want to go to the next place. And if we're rescued immediately out of it, it can even hamper our ability to just move really powerfully into the next phase. So, yeah, these days I'm practicing a lot, just hearing my body and being like, okay, yeah, I hear you and I see you. And I watch those thoughts of like, oh my God, maybe I should get a massage, or I should take another hot bath. I took one yesterday. Should I just be like, yeah, maybe it just wants to be seen and heard.
Exactly. Gorgeous. Oh, so
I do
much.
want to say that the magic, I learned it from acro yoga. I practiced
okay.
and that I think it might be like I don't know, but it might be a practice that they have calling it magic. But.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I mean, I talk about magic a lot, but I've never spoken about it in that way. So that just feels really good. The words we use are so important. Yeah. Oh, Tanya, always so much we could talk about, and we'll definitely have another conversation when your book is coming out, whenever that will be. Very excited about the book that Tanya's created in our in the Unbound Writing Mastermind. So that will definitely be another conversation. But for now, for people listening, what's the best way for them to find out more about you and your work, Tanya?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I love being in conversation with you. And if someone wanted to find me, they can find me on my website, which is tanyadantus.com, or on Facebook. I have a business page there. And yeah, I think those are the best places to find me. Perfect. If you're local here in Freiburg, come out to the Write Her Story performance on May 18th.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, I think actually when this episode comes out, it's like the week before that. So that's perfect timing. So you're watching this now. But we'll definitely post the link to your website below this video, Tanya, so people can easily find you. Thank you so much for joining me today. As ever, I love our conversations.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Fantastic. So we'll see you again soon for another episode of Unbound. Bye.
Sounds fantastic. Bye.